Hi, Michael Bettine here for another episode of It's Cup of Time. And today, something a little different, something I've been thinking a lot about lately and been writing about. So it might become part of my next book or maybe just a blog out there on the internet. So I'd like to start with a story. I've told this story before, but it's possible a lot of you people have never heard it. And it's about how I kind of got into all of this stuff here. And I think it's a common thing among a lot of musicians. When you practice by yourself in your own bedroom, living room, studio, wherever your instruments are, and you're playing by yourself, you hear the most amazing sounds. Very small, subtle sounds. Now for me, originally it was playing drum set. So I had my drums and I had my cymbals, and I'm practicing, and I'm hearing all these different sounds, especially when playing very quietly. Instead of whacking at everything, just little soft touches, especially on the cymbals. Getting the metals to resonate, hitting the bell, hitting the middle of the cymbal, hitting the edge of the cymbal, using different sticks, using mallets, using my hands and fingers. It's like, wow, there's all these really great subtle tones. And then what happens? Well, you go play in a band, and especially if you're playing in an amplified band, and you have a big bass amp on one side of your drum set and a big Marshall stack on the other side, and then a big PA out front, and everything's mic'd up. And there's just all this sound and all these beautiful little sounds that you've been playing with at home and working on. They're lost. You cannot hear them. So in order to play in a rock band, it has to be, big motion and loud sounds because you have to compete with everything else. But when you're playing by yourself, you can do all those little subtle sounds because there's no competition, and you can hear all those. Now, moving a little further along, when I started getting into all of these amazing instruments, I had the gongs, I had bells, I had chimes, other related metal instruments, bowls, different things like that. And again, I would play those at home, and I like to play them quietly. I'd never be at home, just like, oh yeah, I love this gong. Just whacking at it. It's like, no. Mallets, little sticks, fingers, just subtly playing on the gongs or the bowls or bells or little chimes or anything like that. Listening to the resonance, listening to the overtones, listening to how playing two instruments, all the tones mix together and create more tones. And I would do that at home, and I was like, wow, this just sounds so amazing. I could play for hours. I could play all night and just get lost, lose track of time, and just play all these amazing instruments. So I was playing progressive rock music. And I had a big setup. I had my big double bass drum setup. I had timbales over here. I built a rack before there were any commercially available racks. I built a rack to hold my big gongs behind me, and I had bars on the side to hold bells and chimes and sheet metal and things. And I go play with the band, and again, guitar, bass, keyboards, vocals, loud amplifiers, PA, and it's like I had to hit the gong to make it be heard. I couldn't just do little taps that would get lost in the music. Once in a while, there might be a silent part where I could kind of be featured and, do something with a bell or something, but for the most part, again, it was that same problem. I'm playing in a band, and all these wonderful sounds that I've been working with at home are lost. The subtlety is gone. Now, unless I was in a recording studio all mic'd up and maybe 20 mics on my setup, and then when we're mixing it, we can bring up some of those little sounds. Okay, that's one thing. But when you're playing live, it's like, as a drummer, in many ways, you have to simplify your playing. It's very different than playing in a studio, like I said, with all the mics, and they capture the subtleties, and then you can bring them up when you're mixing. If you're playing live, and you're playing bigger rooms, and they're noisy, and all this, it's a trade-off. You have to trade off the subtleties for the bigger sounds that are going to come across against all that live sound. So again, I'd play in my band, we'd do gigs, we'd go on tour and do stuff, and I'd come home, bring my drums home, set them up there, and I'd go back to playing the small gestures, the little sounds. And I loved it. So eventually, we'll fast forward many, many years, I started working on my own music, which naturally was percussion music. I had a specially designed drum set that had, 7 single-headed toms, 2 single-headed bass drums, 4 cymbal trees, gongs, bells, and all that, writing compositions for this sort of percussion orchestra that I had. And I toured with that for many years, playing solo compositions, actual written music. And none of it was like, there was no bashing involved. It was all subtleties. A lot of times I would use very thin sticks, something like this, kind of like a timbale stick, very thin and light, and just, playing on the cymbals, getting tones. I'd use marimba mallets, all sorts of different things, timpani mallets, whatever. And the music I was creating was about shade and subtlety. That's what was important to me. Just that sort of thing, getting textures. I really liked that. So, fast forward a little more. I started creating this music. I was tired of, I'd played rock and roll and jazz and all that sort of stuff for over 30 years, since I was 15 when I first did my first professional gig for money, 15 years old, playing in some sort of a hall with a band. And I'd done that. It's like, okay, what more can I do? I've said what I need to say on the drum set playing in that context. So like I said, I built this special drum set of my own for solo percussion playing based on the idea of a gamelan pot gong setup. And I had it tuned in 2 rows so I could play all these melodies and move around. And then I had the cymbal trees I could play melodies on, because each tree was different, sort of like a soprano and alto and baritone cymbal trees. And it was an amazing setup, and I really had a great time creating music for it and then going out and playing. So I kind of abandoned the regular drum setup, the rock, jazz, pop, country sort of drumming, and moved into solo percussion. Subtle sounds. That's most of what I was doing. And if you go on my Bandcamp site, there's some older recordings of this setup, and you can hear the type of melodic drumming and metal work I was doing, and you can hear things, especially on the Stars Show the Way album, my first solo album, a lot of subtleties. So where is all that leading to? Well, I eventually ditched the drums Still have them. They're packed up in a corner. Pull them out now and then. But all the subtleties of the metals really took over. So probably in about 2007 maybe, I pretty much moved the drums out of the setup, put a table in front, whatever, more metals, because I found you could get much more subtlety out of these. And who wouldn't want to play these instruments? They're amazing, I'm amazed every time I touch them, every time I make sounds. So here we are to today and what I want to talk about. The theme is the sounds beneath the sounds. Let me just repeat that. The sounds beneath the sounds. So what does that mean, the sounds beneath the sounds? Well, it's easy to take a big padded mallet and, hit the gong and get a big sound that is gorgeous and fills the room, and it's really amazing. But that's only one sound, and it's the big sound. But beneath that sound are multiple layers of other sounds, the subtle sounds, the micro sounds. And that's what really attracts me. I think I'm probably one of the quietest gong players out there. I see other people and they're always out there and they're just like, they're loud. That's fine. That's their thing. People come to see me and they put their mats way in the back of the room, and I'm like, no, come on up front, right here. This is the best spot. Be close, because I try to work with the subtle sounds. Those are the ones that attract me the most, and I think those are the most beautiful sounds. Yeah, I like a big crash now and then, or a big crescendo, but I really like the subtleties, the quieter sounds. So today that's what we are going to talk about and what we are going to explore. I have my regular mic set up here, my two small diaphragm condensers, but I've added two mics, one on each gong here. I have my SE 4400s, which is a large diaphragm condenser. I have them in the cardioid pattern. And this one's located about 3 inches from the gong, and this one is probably about 2 inches from the gong, because I don't plan on getting the gong swinging. I'm not going to hit them with big mallets. I'm going to play them with a variety of small mallets and flumies and beaters and things. And what we're going to look for are those sounds beneath the sounds, beneath the bigger sounds. And if you've seen me play, I like to get, right in the gong, get my face in there. I know the first time Mike Tamburo and I met and played together, he was like, wow, I didn't realize, how close you like to be to the gongs. But yeah, I like to get right up there because I want to hear those subtle sounds. So I've always got my face right in my big gongs. As I've said before, yes, I'll back off to give it some room, to give it some air. Also to give it so I can hear it in the room, hear what's happening. But I like to be up there. I like to be hearing what is going on with the sound. So we're going to play with some sounds here. Subtle sounds, micro sounds, the sounds beneath the sounds. Okay. The sounds beneath the sounds. The subtleties. I was playing a lot quieter than I would in a session because it's just me. I'm just here, right on top of the gong. But I'm searching for those sounds. Different pressure, how hard do I hit? Where do I hit? What angle do I hit? Different places. Down here, I get the really deep sound if I just barely get the gong moving. Things like that. It's an exploration. It's a learning experience. I like to do this with all my gongs and just play with them at the very quiet, subtle sounds. Because again, it's easy to just take a mallet and bang on the gong and get this glorious noise. But what about the other sounds available to you? So if I'm playing in a session, it'll be a little louder, of course, because people have to hear it. But sometimes I will play quiet like that, like a whisper. And that invites the people in, as I've said before, playing quietly. Even if they're lying on the floor on their mat, metaphorically, they have to lean in to hear it. They have to focus their attention more. Lean their hearing in towards you to hear it. Or when you're just banging on the gongs, you're pushing everything at them. It's like at a rock concert and you're just sitting there and the monster PA in an arena and the sound is just like, it's just assaulting you. But here it's like, if I play very quietly, if I whisper. Try this sometime if you're talking with people. Bring your voice down. Whisper. People will lean in. Like if you're at a dinner table, they're sitting there. And you're talking and you're having a conversation and your voice gets quieter and you start. And also, notice how the people get quieter. The overall sound level comes down as you whisper. And you're whispering. And people are leaning in because they want to hear it. Or when you're talking like this, it's coming right at them. But when you're talking like this, quietly, very subtly, people have to lean in. So that's a big part of what I guess I'm all about. Is I want this to be a two-way thing. I don't want it to be just me up here blowing all these sounds out there for people. I want them to come into my sound. I want them, this is my space. When I set up my gongs and my bowls and the whole setup, this is my space, my house, my church, my temple, whatever you want to call it. This is my space. And everybody is out there. And I have a table here, so it's kind of a barricade in a way. But I want to invite everybody in. I don't want them to be out there. I want to invite them in. I want them to all be right here. Crowded up here, everybody's standing, shoulder to shoulder. We're all up here together listening to these sounds. So I like to play quietly. I like to play subtly. And I like to invite the people in. Come on in. This sounds amazing. Come on over here. Get your ear right up here. Yeah. Listen to this. That's, kind of what I like to do. That's one reason I don't like to play really big places where they have to mic up the gongs and everything, because you lose that intimacy. Because suddenly you're listening to secondhand sound coming out of a speaker over here. You're not listening to first-hand sound coming right off the gong through the air. You might hear some of that, but the minute you got to turn up the speaker, for the people way in the back, the people right next to the stage or whatever, they're getting the original sound. But people further back, they're just getting the speaker sound. I want that intimacy. I like to play small places. I like to play very nice halls with really great acoustics, like actual concert halls, churches, chapels, things like that that are designed for sound. You know, especially the older churches, I mean, they were designed to magnify the voice, the choir. That was one of the most important focuses of the whole service, was the choir. And the voice goes out and it flies above in the rafters and it's all around. I love playing in places like that where the gongs can do the same. And I don't have to play them loudly because these buildings are designed to sort of amplify the sound, magnify it. So that's today's transmission. Look for the subtleties, the intimacy in your instruments. Look for the sounds beneath the sounds. Thanks for watching. We will see you next week.